Okay, let's unpack this. India's electricity demand is, well, it's surging.
Yeah, it really is.
And we're not just talking about the usual summer peaks anymore, right?
Yeah.
This seems like year-round growth.
Exactly. It's being intensely fueled by, rapid urbanization, soaring industrial activity.
And even these new things like AI data centers, I imagine.
Absolutely, all adding to the load. Now, here's the surprising paradox, the real heart of it all.
Go on.
Despite this really aggressive push towards green energy, which is happening,
Yeah, you see the headlines everywhere.
thermal power, especially coal, it kind of remains the silent strength. It's still overwhelmingly the primary source.
Right. So today, actually, it's National Thermal Engineering Day, July 24th.
Oh, good timing.
Perfect timing.
Oh.
So we're doing a deep dive into whether thermal power still holds, significant potential and, maybe more importantly, a crucial role amidst this big green transition everyone's focused on.
It's a critical question.
It's truly remarkable when you step back. India is now the world's third largest producer and consumer of electricity. That's huge.
It is a massive scale.
And what really struck me, looking at the figures, was this milestone they hit back in June.
Oh.
Over 50%, I think it's 50.08% to be exact,
Right.
of installed electricity capacity now comes from non-fossil fuel sources. So solar, wind, hydro, nuclear.
That's a big number, and they hit it 5 years ahead of schedule, which is impressive.
It's a huge win on paper. But the reality of actual electricity generation tells a very different story, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That highlights the core of this paradox we need to explore.
Okay.
Because while that installed green capacity figure is genuinely impressive, you look at the total installed power capacity overall, about 484.8 gigawatts as of June 2025. Thermal sources still account for a huge chunk of that. It's 242.04 gigawatts, so nearly half, like 49.92%.
Almost neck and neck in terms of just capacity.
Right. Pretty much. But crucially, when it comes to what's actually, keeping the lights on day in, day out, powering homes and industries.
The actual electrons flowing.
Exactly. Coal is still the dominant fuel. It contributes around 70.34% of the total electricity output.
70%. Wow, that's quite a gap between capacity and generation.
It's a massive gap. And we've seen this reliance actually grow steadily. Coal-based generation went from roughly 896 billion units back in FY16
Yeah.
to over 1,330 billion units in FY25. That's a huge increase.
So dependence isn't shrinking, it's growing in absolute terms.
In absolute terms, yes. And, this enduring reliance on thermal power, it's been foundational in improving power access. We're talking over 2.8 crore households. That's 28 million homes getting access.
That's incredible progress.
And it's boosted per capita electricity consumption by nearly 46%. Plus, it's led to a drastic decline in power shortages from like 4.2% back in 2013-14 to just 0.1% now.
Okay, so it's undeniable played a massive role in development and reliability.
It's been critical for ensuring consistent supply.
Indeed, that paints a very clear picture of that reliance. So this then leads to the critical question. Here's where it gets really interesting. If the green energy capacity is so high, why isn't it providing that uninterrupted supply? What makes thermal power still the kind of undisputed backbone of India's grid?
Well, the fundamental challenge, and this isn't unique to India, is that renewable sources, by their very nature, solar, when they're intermittent.
Right, the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow.
Exactly. So they aren't yet capable, especially without massive storage solutions, of providing that uninterrupted round-the-clock supply needed to meet consistent and often surging demand.
We see that play out, don't we?
We do. Think about peak summer. You hear about power cuts in cities like Delhi, Hyderabad, Mumbai.
Yeah, frustrating.
They aren't just inconveniences. They powerfully illustrate the critical role thermal energy plays during those demand surges. It has to step in when solar output drops in the evening or when the wind dies down.
So it's the reliable backup, the baseload provider.
Precisely. And India isn't alone in facing this. If you look globally, Germany, for instance, had to restart coal plants after the Russian gas crisis hit them just to stabilize their grid.
Right, I remember.
And Japan continues to build new thermal and gas-based capacity specifically for energy security reasons.
So even highly developed economies are struggling with this transition away from reliable fossil fuels.
It's a complex balancing act. And what's truly insightful here in India is that despite all the green ambitions, the government isn't just, tolerating thermal power. They're actively planning a massive expansion.
Really? Expansion?
Yes. proposing to add 80 gigawatts of new thermal capacity by 2032.
80 gigawatts, that's a huge amount.
It is, and it's backed by tenders worth over 2.75 lakh crore rupees. That's hundreds of billions in investment. It's a powerful statement of long-term commitment.
Wow. But wait, you mentioned earlier they're adding capacity.
Yeah.
How's that going in reality? Is it keeping pace?
Well, that's where there's a bit of a reality check. Even with this intent, there's often a significant gap between the targets and what actually gets built on time.
Okay.
For instance, in the last fiscal year, FY25, the target was to add 15.4 gigawatts of thermal capacity.
Man.
They only managed 4.53 gigawatts. Only 6 out of the 22 planned units actually became operational.
So planning is one thing, execution is another?
Execution always takes time, especially with large infrastructure projects, permitting, land acquisition, financing.
Sure. That global parallel with Germany and Japan is fascinating. Does that suggest maybe a fundamental limit to how quickly any large economy can transition? Or are there specific Indian factors making this reliance on thermal even more sort of entrenched?
It's probably a combination of both, actually. The sheer scale and speed of India's demand growth is a pretty unique factor. It's just enormous.
Right. And despite its undeniable importance and the government clearly recognizing its role, what difficulties does the thermal sector itself face? What are the headwinds it's navigating?
Well, there are quite a few, and they're multifaceted. Firstly, there's the issue of grid instability.
Okay. How so?
As you rapidly expand solar and wind, which are variable, without enough large-scale energy storage, think big batteries or pumped hydro.
Yes, storage is the key challenge for renewables.
Exactly. Without adequate storage, the grid becomes more volatile. You get big swings in supply. This forces thermal plants to ramp up and down really quickly to compensate.
Which must put a lot of strain on them.
It does. Increases operational strain, wear and tear, and maintenance needs. It's not how they were ideally designed to operate.
Okay, so grid instability. What else?
Then there are environmental compliance costs. Regulations like flue gas, desulfurization, or FGD, that's the tech used to scrub sulfur dioxide from the exhaust gases.
Right, to reduce pollution, acid rain.
Precisely. Installing and running that adds to operational costs. Now, interestingly, some rules were relaxed in 2025.
Oh, why was that?
Mainly because studies showed the sulfur content in most Indian coal is relatively low compared to other countries. So the immediate need for FGD across all plants was lessened, providing some cost relief.
I see. But long-term environmental concerns probably persist.
Oh, absolutely. And the pressure for cleaner operation isn't going away.
Okay. What other headwinds?
We also have this constant pressure of rising demand versus the capacity gaps we touched upon.
Right, the demand just keeps climbing.
From urbanization, more people buying appliances, the big push for electric vehicles, industrial growth, it all adds up. So many states are now actually going back to signing long-term agreements for reliable thermal power, just to ensure stability.
Locking in that baseload.
Yes, but a significant portion of the new capacity needed is still under construction, creating these potential deficits in the near term.
Got it. Anything else major?
Coal supply and price volatility is another big one, even though domestic coal production has improved.
Which is good.
It is, but plants often face issues with the quality of domestic coal inconsistency, high ash content sometimes, and they frequently have to rely on costly imports, especially during demand surges or monsoon season when domestic supply chains get disrupted.
So supply uncertainty and price shocks from imports.
Yeah, it adds risk.
Yeah.
Then there's the financial distress of the power distribution companies, the discoms.
Ah, yes, the discoms. That's a long-standing issue, isn't it?
It really is. Many struggle with heavy debt burdens and operational losses, things like power theft, inefficient billing.
And that impacts the power plants.
Directly. If discoms can't pay their bills on time, it hurts the cash flow of the thermal power producers, threatening the whole sector's financial stability.
A weak link in the chain.
Definitely. And finally, you have the issue of aging infrastructure. Many of India's thermal plants are quite old.
Operating below peak efficiency.
Often, yes. Lower efficiency, more prone to breakdowns, and generally higher emissions compared to modern plants. Though, to be fair, there have been efforts and some recent improvements in the overall performance across the sector.
Okay, so instability, costs, demand gaps, coal issues, discom finances, aging plants. That's a formidable list of hurdles.
It is. It shows why managing this sector is so complex.
Which among those do you think is the most critical for India to tackle, say, in the short term? And why?
That's tough. But I'd say in the immediate short term, addressing the financial health of the discoms is absolutely paramount.
Because if they can't pay.
The whole system struggles. And alongside that, ensuring consistent, reliable, and reasonably priced coal supply is critical for just keeping the existing plants running smoothly. Those two directly impact day-to-day operational viability.
Makes sense. So on the solution side then, how is the government responding? What initiatives are they actually putting in place to support and maybe modernize this crucial sector, given they clearly see its continued necessity?
Well, they have several strategic initiatives underway. For one, there's the policy allowing 100% foreign direct investment, FDI, in the power sector.
Through the automatic route.
Yes, including in thermal power. The idea is to attract global capital, technology, and expertise into the sector.
Okay, bringing in outside investment.
Then there's a significant push towards adopting supercritical and ultra-supercritical technologies for new plants.
Right, you mentioned those earlier. Higher efficiency.
Much higher efficiency. They operate at higher temperatures and pressures, burn coal more effectively, which means lower emissions per unit of electricity generated.
So cleaner and more economical in the long run.
That's the goal. And interestingly, companies like Coal India are actually building some of these new efficient plants right near the coal mines.
Oh, to cut down on transport costs.
Exactly. Reduces logistics, headaches, and costs. It's quite an insightful play for overall efficiency.
Clever. What else?
There's the biomass co-firing policy. This mandates thermal power plants to blend a certain percentage, typically 5% to 7% of biomass pellets with coal.
What kind of biomass? Agricultural waste.
Mostly agricultural residue, yeah. Stubble, straw, things like that. It helps reduce air pollution from burning crop residue in the fields.
A huge problem in some areas.
And it utilizes that waste productively, plus gives farmers an alternative income stream.
That sounds like a win-win.
It has that potential, though scaling up the biomass supply chain is its own challenge. Then there's the ongoing replacement of old, inefficient plants.
Decommissioning the old one.
Yes, phasing out the really obsolete units and replacing them with modern, more efficient, cleaner facilities improves overall energy output and reduces the environmental footprint.
Makes sense. And you mentioned the FGD relaxation.
Right, the relaxation on flue gas desulfurization installation. As we discussed, in 2025, most plants were exempted due to the lower sulfur content in Indian coal, which eased some immediate cost burdens.
Okay.
And finally, a very practical measure. The government is focusing hard on coal stock maintenance.
Just making sure the plants have enough coal on hand?
Especially during the high demand seasons, like summer or before the monsoons. They monitor stock levels closely and coordinate logistics to ensure adequate reserves are available at power plants to prevent shortages and blackouts.
Proactive management to avoid crises.
Exactly. It's about ensuring operational stability.
So quite a few initiatives there, tackling investment, technology, environment, efficiency, and basic logistics. Given all these efforts and weighing them against those ongoing challenges, what does this all mean for India's long-term energy path? Are we looking at sort of a permanent dual energy future where thermal always walks hand in hand with green?
I think dual energy future is a very apt description, certainly for the foreseeable future, let's say the next decade or two at least.
Yeah.
The investment figures alone tell a story. India is apparently poised to double its thermal power investments to around 2.3 lakh crore rupees by 2028.
Doubling down, literally.
Pretty much. And remember that target of adding 80 gigawatts of new thermal capacity by 2032? Well, currently, there are about 60 gigawatts already in the pipeline planned or under construction. And significantly, about 19 gigawatts of that is expected to come from private players.
Ah, so the private sector is stepping up more in thermal now.
Yes, that's a notable shift. We're expecting private sector participation in thermal power to increase quite a bit, maybe from around 7-8% currently to potentially nearly 1/3 over the next 3 years or so.
That's a big jump.
It is. However, it's really important to keep in mind the timelines. These are huge projects.
They take years to build.
Exactly. Long construction periods mean most of this new capacity will likely only become operational post-2028.
So no immediate flood of new thermal power, but a steady pipeline.
A steady pipeline for the medium term. And fundamentally, even as renewables continue to grow impressively, thermal power remains absolutely crucial for providing that baseload supply.
That consistent 2047 power the grid relies on.
Precisely. And as a sign of that renewed recognition, we're seeing several states actually resuming the signing of long-term, like 25-year power purchase agreements, PPAs, for thermal power.
After a gap.
after quite a long gap where the focus was perhaps more heavily on shorter-term renewable PPAs. This signals a renewed long-term commitment to thermal from the utilities who need reliable supply.
Interesting. And is it financially attractive for investors to build these new thermal plants?
Well, the projected tariff for new thermal projects is currently standing around Rs 5.5 to Rs 5.8 per unit,
Okay.
which, according to analysts, offers potential returns of about 15% if the projects are executed on schedule and within budget. So yes, it can be an attractive proposition.
Right. So wrapping this up, it's clear that India's ambitious green energy push is absolutely undeniable. You see the progress in installed capacity.
Yet its ongoing fundamental reliance on thermal power for grid stability for meeting that relentlessly surging demand is just as real and, frankly, looks quite enduring for some time to come.
It really sets up a fascinating dynamic for the future.
It really does.
Yeah.
And maybe this raises an important question for you, our listeners, to consider. Can India truly balance its ambitious clean energy goals with this fundamental, undeniable need for stable, reliable, and affordable power, especially without the enduring backbone of thermal, given that demand just keeps surging from urbanization, industry, and all these new technologies like AI and EVs?
Or put another way, will the path to a fully green grid, realistically, always depend on thermal power bridging those gaps, perhaps for much longer than many currently expect?
Exactly. It's a complex interplay between rapid growth, sustainability goals, and basic energy security, something to really reflect on.